Hey everyone, I'm Necromuncher, and welcome back to Glassburn, a creative project where through fantasy, art, and speculation, I try to bring a new world to life. If this is the first Glassburn video you watch, first of all, hi, how are you? Welcome aboard. Also, you should really watch the Worldbuilding playlist from the start, otherwise a lot of things I say might not make sense. For instance, over the last two videos I've been talking about religion, specifically the Enlightenment, and about the origin of dwarves in my setting. Since today's video will touch on both these topics, if you didn't watch them both, I highly recommend doing so. If you must choose only one for some reason, the dwarves' origin story is a bit more relevant for today's topic. So if you did watch my video about the origin of dwarves, first of all, hi, how are you? Welcome back. Also, you should already know that today we'll be exploring a religion called the Intricacy. In short, it is a faith evolved by and with the ostracized Earthfolk, who found beauty and higher chances of survival in ever more intricate and elaborate imitations of nature built into their traps and disguises. While it started with the profession of trapmaking and proceeded through warcraft and combat, over the years these concepts were further generalized and led followers of the faith to strive and craft ever finer and more intricate creations of all kinds. Such creations can sometimes be crafted over centuries and generations, often shifting course and improving when inherited. More often, however, Intricists tend to a single, personal side project that is their sole craft. It could be anything from a painting to a grand mechanism to an elaborate cipher, and Intricists spend many years in search of a subject for their project. In today's drawing, I'll be trying to show the Intricist drive for complexity and crafted beauty in a few ways, while hinting at other facets of Dwarven and Intricist society and ingenuity. For instance, a strong vein of creation, their term for branch or field, regards prosthetics and enabling mechanisms. This is due to the origins of the Earthfolk. Over centuries of refinement, dwarves developed prosthetics that allowed fine control of limbs and digits through mechanisms relying on miniature-scale thermokinesis to expand and contract moving parts. To show this, I wanted to incorporate a bismuth-covered prosthetic somewhere. The mechanical design I chose holds three bendable and controllable aluminum digits jutting out of a golden, or for weight considerations probably gold-plated, tubular forearm. This is an example of an exceptional engineering project elevated to a level of finish revered by many as dwarven craftsmanship. Although, in truth, not all followers of the Intricacy are dwarves, and not all dwarves are Intricists. That fact has been known to cause confusion. The false stereotype that a dwarf equals an Intricist opened a crack for swindlers to trade inferior dwarven crafts as Intricists' work and subjugated unrelated individuals to some prejudice and biases. Those stereotypes were earned though, as many Intricists' community are made up entirely of dwarves, or even a single clan of dwarves, and they were never reclusive, shy, or humble. Over the years, some clans of Intricist dwarves under certain leaders made projects that would be named clan crafts or blood crafts. These are massively intricate and resource-demanding projects with estimated blood tolls reaching thousands of lives. This is often due to the harsh demands of construction, along with the fact that many who worked on these projects were prisoners serving a sentence. Heavy rocks, metals, dangerous chemicals, insufficient food, poor living conditions, all led to many deaths dedicated to the clan craft of the leader's bloodline. Despite the casualties, some blood-crafted projects remain to become modern-day wonders of construction, planning, and engineering. Great cities carved from the guts of a mountain, spires that seem like frail needles but stand for ages, stone and metal structures that look like they grew from the ground, and many more. In the drawing, I initially wanted to add such a project in the form of a moving city, much like in Mortal Engines or Howl's Moving Castle, but decided against it. I ended up adding a mountaintop fort with 4 retractable protective panels, greatly inspired by Avatar's metal bender city of Zhaofu, seen in the Legend of Korra. This fort city is indeed a great construction project, and might even be a clan craft, but not one that would earn the status of a marvel, as there are many more elaborate and more impressive sites around the world, sites we might yet visit on other videos. However, while technically unfinished, the largest project, surpassing any other by sheer scale, duration, and number of participants, is the Earthway, a cobbled road spanning continents. No one knows who began paving the road, but the traditional decree is simple. Every traveling dwarf and follower of the Intricacy knows the saying, "A stone at dawn." This phrase has several meanings, most commonly being a parallel to the famous "We ride at dawn" as a declaration of travel intentions. In the context of the religion, this phrase refers to a custom where each day in which an Intricists travel an unpaved road or is walking the Earthway, they must add a treading stone. Over the course of hundreds of years and hundreds of thousands of dwarves traveling the entire world, the Earthway grew to spread from seashore to mountain peak, through deserts, plains, and forests. In more heavily traveled areas, the cobbled stones were placed in growing and elaborate patterns, slowly built piece by piece like giant mosaics. In less traveled areas, the Earthway might just be a small heap of stones, marking a safe passage. With time, the Earthway became a way for settlements to publicly show support for the traveling Intricists and dwarves. Wherever the cobbled Earthway is maintained, dwarves and Intricists know they are welcome. This support is more often than not worthwhile for those settlements, since the traveling dwarves are a primary source of trade, both in the form of goods and of information. We didn't yet discuss in detail about the spread of civilized settlements across Glassburn's Earth, and while I did sort of imply it when talking about the Aravan and Burrow towns, it is time I state it clearly. There are no empires here. Even societies calling themselves countries are stretching the limits of that word. So, in a world ruled by vast expanses of nature, with city-states coming in at a not-so-close second place, people who travel the land, as some dwarves still do and as Intricists often do, are the lifeblood of regional and sometimes even continental intercommunication. In the drawing, I wanted to portray a couple of travelers with a goat as their mighty burden beast, who found the time to hop on the Earthway cairn and enjoy the rising sun. According to his bismuth prosthetic and fancy clothes, the male dwarf is probably some sort of merchant or researcher in the field of metallurgy, gemology, or geology. The tools of his trade are kept on the goat's saddlebags, along with some samples and minimal rations. The rest of the food for their travels, this crew will forage, hunt, and gather themselves, as their ancestors had to do for generations. When writing a religion, we're often asked to consider what it offers its followers and how it affects their daily lives. The basic principles are usually a sense of belonging and small rules and rituals that help life make a little more sense in the believer's mind. A religious character doesn't always choose to be a part of a religion, especially if it's the type you are born into, like Judaism, or incorporated into at a very young age, like baptizing babies into Christianity. That being said, often there is some unique draw to the way of life a certain religion offers, one that keeps people in their religion with true faith and not just social constructs. When discussing the Intricacy, people who live its traditions will talk about a sense of unveiling and exploration, about security gained with deep knowledge, and sometimes even about a feeling of conquering nature. In a devout Intricist's mind, one of the most intricate creation is a living, breathing person. This idea is solidified as that for Intricists, giving birth is considered holy. Over the course of history, this concept was a key factor, for better or worse, in affecting women's status in many Intricist societies. According to her clothing and weapon, the female dwarf is probably the trader's bodyguard, and maybe his wife or other similarly close family member. I chose to draw her facing away back to where they came from, mostly on a whim. But when later I thought about it, she would probably check nobody's following them, as her travel partner is choosing a treading stone. I chose to add her for a few reasons. One is composition and depth. You might have noticed I started the drawing by stretching some lines for a unique composition I never tried before, very loosely following the golden ratio triangle composition. But to achieve that, I could have drawn another male dwarf, just the same, without having to draw any braids, which, like cowboy hats and myself, don't conform to the laws of physics. My main reason to add this female dwarf bodyguard holding a vicious warhammer and wearing an armored dress was to show the gender equality and freedom of choice present in most modern societies. You'll notice that at no point I ever mentioned a deity, clergy, or really anything miraculous or supernatural usually associated with religions. That's because the Intricacy follows a lot of the same core principles that can be seen in the Enlightenment religion, including belief in Galle and Alat, despite having a slightly shifted viewpoint. The two streams diverge in their approach mostly, where the Enlightenment is about exploration and revelations to uncover the secrets of the universe in a grand philosophical manner. The Intricacy is much more down to earth. Their angle, how they see exploration and discovery as part of the holy scheme, is interpreted as Gale along with the many saints, providing the Intricists with ways to survive a reality shaped by Alat's theft of everything but fire. Overcoming nature's perils through discovery is a necessity and a personal obligation to the greater good. This led to the love-hate relationship the Intricacy had with Alat. On one hand, they blame Alat for keeping many inventions and life-saving knowledge hidden. On the other hand, it is concealment, disguise, and Alat's trickery that allowed them to survive in the first place. If, when talking about the Enlightenment, we said that Alat is not evil, per se, the Intricacy's perception of the deity places it more firmly in a malevolent position as a necessary evil to be harnessed with caution. To emphasize this relationship of trying to tame Alat's trickery, in the drawing I tried to add Intricists' art that mimicking or incorporating nature in some sense. While the trader's prosthetic is the more obvious and blatant use of nature in creation, literally just letting bismuth crystals grow on the golden forearm, there is more. The guard's armor draws inspiration from the Gonlin, layering silvery plates of polished steel and tapering into a tail to mimic the grand beast. Her hammer's head is forged in such a way as to have steel teeth embedded in golden gums, and balanced with a spike designed like the layered earth of the mythological Sodesh mountain range. Many of the jewelry and decorations are obviously inspired by nature, with the goat's horns having golden antlers on top, the merchant's brooch trying to mimic the bismuth, and even the steel cap at the end of the guard's braid is a nod in the direction of another animal design I have planned, the Listretch, but that will have to wait for a future video. That's it for today. I hope you liked this modern evolution of dwarves and their religion that evolved with them. I touched a lot of topics today, from religion, obviously, through the growth of a subspecies to communities, gender roles, husbandry, art, and the spread of civilizations throughout the land, stereotypes, and even religious philosophy. This is reflected in a very detail-heavy drawing, which leads me to a new section of my end ramble I'd like to call Two Fruits and a Seed. I stole the idea from two other YouTubers, where it was originally called the Stars and Wishes System of Improvement, but to match Glassburn's setting, I changed it a bit. The concept is stating two things I liked with what I did, these are the stars or fruits in my case, then saying one more thing that I think left room for improvement. The first fruit for today's drawing, I think, is the preparation process. You saw me at the start of the video writing a bunch of ideas I want to incorporate into the piece, then sort of moodboarding references that inspire me and match the ideas I have in my head. This is a process I rarely do, but when I do remember to do it, the results are inarguably better. It's a process any self-respecting professional concept artist does, as far as I've been able to gather, and it's definitely something I'd like to keep in my toolkit, or fruit bowl. The second fruit is the colors I chose, and the colors I ended up having in the final piece. I intentionally split this into two since the colors I chose as a base allowed me to build good separation between the different layers of the drawing, but I ended up using a lot of effects and global lighting that managed to pull the layers back together to a coherent drawing. It's a neat trick I got from watching sculpting videos using very thin washes for a similar purpose, and while I think I'm overdoing it slightly, this is definitely a technique I'll keep using. Fruit for the fruit god. Now for the seed. I think I draw too much. As in, I'm putting in too much effort into unnecessary details that no one ends up seeing in the finished drawing. Can you see the eyelashes on the trader, or the individual hairs on the guard, the cut of the gems on the goat's horn lace thingy? Too much wasted time. Now, I'd argue that since I enjoyed adding those details, that's who I am. I enjoy adding small details no one sees and also drawing hands, but that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant because I aim to improve in art, and I know that highly detailed art can still be achieved with much less effort, and beautiful art that I love and would love to be able to create can be made with a lot less details. My go-to examples are Peter Morbacher's art for the first and Dominique Meyer's art for the latter, links in the description. So, to sum things up, good preparation in mood board, good use of colors, not efficient and or expressive enough. Very technical art stuff. Sorry everyone who joined in only for the lore, I will do it again. Tell me in the comments what you think about the drawing, about the dwarves and the intricacy, and if you have 2 fruits and a seed for this video. Anything from the art to the lore and even the video editing. I'd love to hear your feedback and ideas for Glassburn so we could all get better stuff as this world slowly takes shape. If you want to support the channel so I could continue to develop Glassburn, you can hit like, subscribe and share the video to your friends or foes. It's free and it would really help me out. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, tell me in the comments what you want to see next, and for now, bye!